So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Yin. It's kind of a really nice day out. You know, it's like it's not hot. It's kind of cool. Sun's not visible. I mean, it's like the definition of a perfect Arizona Sunday. That's awesome. So let's begin with introductions, as we so often do, starting with Kim in the corner.
That's me. Korn.
Jackie.
Phil.
Elizabeth.
Dominic.
Sadhana. Kelly. Francesca. Jana.
David.
Eva. Andrea. Dale. Dorothea. Toby.
And I'm Stuart. So welcome all. I'm very excited about the fact that we have begun to master setting up in this room. This is
as long as there's not too many of us.
That's right. We're just four critical steps away from being able to differentiate right and left. So soon going to happen. But before we begin, as usual, just want to start by reminding everyone who you've heard this before, but the Shambhala Center, we are having our upcoming level 1 training. I believe Phil is attending. Is that correct, Phil? I don't want to call you out, but you're attending. And it's definitely a go. So, you know, we always have, of course, check registration, but it's going to happen, and that is the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, not the first week, which is really made up of July 31st, 1st, and 2nd, but the 2nd. Now, if you don't really or aren't feeling necessarily quite ready to commit to that level, the Friday night talk, which is Friday the 7th, from about 7 until like 8:30, is public, right? Which you're welcome to come to. So you're welcome to come to that talk and hear a little bit more, and then you can make a decision. We're always welcoming new people in, and that's one way to do it. But we have a lot of ground to cover today in our class, in our Yin class. So let's get started by finding a comfortable seated position, one that allows us to express dignity, finding a strong foundation in the legs so that the spine, one vertebra at a time, can build on that strong earthen foundation, rising up little by little without creating any tension in the torso, so not creating rigidity by tightening either the abdomen or the back. Instead, allowing that strong foundation of the legs to give us the confidence that we can sort of extend the spine comfortably up to the sky. And recalling, perhaps, that paraphrase of Dag Hammarskjöld's quote, "The only kind of dignity which is genuine is that which is not diminished by the indifference of others." So recognizing that this sense of dignity arises from an eternal and persistent quality within us rather than something that is externally validated. And recognizing, too, that sometimes dignity requires a little bit of faking it till we make it. In that case, we're just really committing ourselves to sitting here with a posture that looks dignified externally, and we just try to relax into that dignity. And then taking the hands to the hip crease so that we have a open heart and strong back. And with a regalness of a king or queen, but without any coldness or distance, we incline the body forward, bowing to ourselves and to others. And we slowly begin to come up, still resting in that dignity. Let's come into butterfly pose. So soles of the feet together. And anchoring the hands, and then let's just begin to bring the spine forward, rounding, when we find that tightness in our bodies, that place where architecturally we can no longer sustain a forward bend without rounding the spine. Relaxing the head and neck and breathing. And in this first posture, as always, connecting to the first of our three questions, am I here now? As veterans of this style, recalling that this question is intended to build our confidence that we can come back from wandering, we can snap back from automatic behaviors into a very mindful and aware condition of consciousness. That the question, am I here now, can only ever be answered in the affirmative. Remembering that the pinnacle of practice is not necessarily to have no thinking, but rather that each time we become distracted, we shift back faster and faster, so that there is no real time for us to sit in automatic patterns or behaviors or thoughts. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? And slowly beginning to rise up, coming out of the posture, and then into Sphinx pose, so coming on to the abdomen, please. And on the abdomen, feeling free to widen the thighs, placing the elbows under the shoulders to begin, and then walking them forward if we need less sensation, or perhaps pressing the arms straight if we need more. Awakening the back, relaxing the head. Recalling that our second question, can I feel what's going on in my body? There to remind us, to connect us to the raw sensation of being in the body, of doing a posture. as opposed to the thinking about feeling or sensation. We differentiate this by noticing how when a feeling arises, we very quickly either label or narrativize, rather than simply feeling the quality of that sensation and perhaps even leaning into it, which is to say, bringing fuller attention to those places of sensation. Beginning first with places that sensation is arising very strongly, such as in the back here. And eventually spreading attention out over the whole of the body and experiencing both the very intense and the very mild and almost kind of like background noise aspects of sensation. This question over time can help lead us to a recognition of the impermanence of feeling, of sensation, in that no sensation exists in a kind of static form. It is constantly moving and changing. Much like when something is looked under a microscope, its form changes dramatically. So too do we, when we put the attention into feeling, notice how much more nuanced feeling and sensation is than when we simply try to label it in a one-dimensional way. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? And please, lowering down. Taking a moment of rest on the abdomen. Then, if you would, keeping your head oriented as it is, flipping onto your spine for the twists. Please begin with the feet flat on the floor, the knees bent, the body fully relaxed here, and then collectively agreeing to make the left side of the room the one with the mats and cabinets and the blankets. We'll drop the knees to that side. As the knees drop, noticing the back and either committing to this version, or if the sensation is too great, lifting the top knee slightly off the bottom. If we need more, hooking the bottom ankle over the outside of the top knee and leveraging a little bit more. And finally, choosing to raise the right arm up so as to spread the twist all the way up into the armpit and side body, side waist. Breathing deeply here in the twist. The third question, can I relax? Reminding us not to grip so tightly, to notice and potentially abstain from the tendency to label, to make concrete or permanent any particular feeling or sensation that arises. So we use the term around consciously to give us that image of the ways in which we take a feeling and then we sort of wrap ourselves around it, or wrap our fists around it and hold on to it. So we relax around it, we allow it some space. And we allow it to be as it is and to move and flow in its own natural way. Fundamentally, not creating any blocks or hindrances to the expression of that sensation, whatever it is. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So please unwind, come slowly back to center. Take a moment to rest from the twist. Whatever body position feels most comfortable for you. And then taking the other side, not being at all surprised if there are differences between the two. Perhaps going a little bit deeper or not going so deep in the twist. Or the left arm can't lift quite as high. But either way, finding your way into the twist, whichever variation is working for you, and breathing here. So we spend a good portion of period of time from May through last weekend investigating the Lojong slogans of Atisha. These mind training slogans brought to Tibet in the 11th century and acting as tools for us to latch onto or utilize when difficulties arise in our daily life as well as on the cushion or on the mat. There are 7 sort of sets or points that organize the several Lojong slogans. We investigated point 6. We're now going to turn our attention for a bit to the slogans in point 3. Point 3 really having to do with how we experience and work with bad circumstances when we're on the path of awareness. To facilitate this process, our sequences will rotate around the meridian pairings, starting with the spleen and stomach, and we'll work our way into each one. So our physical attention will simply be on progressively working our way through the meridian system. And our focus on the teachings will be related to developing a deeper appreciation for the nature of difficult circumstances. How and why they arise, and how the texts suggest we work with them. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So please begin to come out of your twist. And again, stretch and release here. So, like in our sequence last weekend, we'll do a set of postures on one side and then return and come to the other. So when you're ready, please bring yourself up to seated, and we will proceed into our main sequence, starting with half saddle pose. So half saddle pose, beginning with the right leg extending out, and the left leg going back like so, can be challenging for the knees. So we can feel free to take one or more blankets or blocks, and sitting on them, give ourselves the ability to bring the other leg back. Now, if you are working with a deep difficulty or issue with the knee, you can always lay on your back and draw the knee into the chest. It will be a lot less intensive for the joint, but may be the safest option. Various people can do awkward-looking things with their leg. It's completely fine. However you want to splay that out. If the ankle turns out, that's fine. If the top of the foot is on the floor, that's fine. If you'd like to, and your body permits it, you can lean back a bit, so that you are deeply stretching the front line of the thigh. So the spleen and stomach channels run, the stomach channel running up the front of the leg and up into the body, and then the spleen running more medially and then up into the armpit. So starting by accessing the front line of the stomach. And again, going as deep into this posture as you'd like, where depth is defined both as the quality of leaning back to stretch and open the front of the thigh, as well as the relationship of the buttocks to the floor such that the knee joint itself is more deeply closed and compressed. many different variations here, all of which are intended to stretch the front line of the thigh here. So starting just very briefly by capturing the essence of the spleen and stomach channel. And as usual from Between Heaven and Earth by Harriet, Beinfield, and Efrem Korn, speaking about the spleen channel, writes, when overburdened by excessive input, either food or information, the spleen cannot transform or transport what it receives, and it produces congestion instead of providing nourishment. This congestion is experienced as distension, fullness, and lethargy, accompanied by ponderous, obsessive, and muddy thinking. Movement of mind and body is lugubrious and effortful. When the spleen is exhausted, the mind becomes disoriented, easily distracted by scattered, superficial, and elusive thoughts. So we have in that sort of sense of things kind of the function of the spleen from a TCM perspective, which is to transform. The stomach, which is its complement, has a downward moving energy that moves things into the intestines. So the spleen energy rises up and the stomach energy, in a sense, goes down. And we're reminded by this quote of how our principles in TCM influence the physical shapes of the bodies that we take, but also reminds us that this is not solely a physical practice, that when we experience mental challenges, that they arise within the same matrix that physical problems do, which is the body-mind, symbolized in our class of the meridian lines. Even without them being repeated in the posture, remembering the three questions throughout. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax? Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? As you come out of this posture, we'll swing the bent back left leg forward, opening up the back of the knee. Checking to see if it still works. And then the next posture will be head to knee pose. So we'll draw the right foot in, leaving now the once bent or previous bent leg long. And we begin to walk ourselves forward into a forward bend. The focus becoming now on compressing the stomach and spleen channels. So, if you have tightness in the hamstring that prevents you from connecting the lower abdomen to the thigh, then please bend the knee so that you are fully pressing in the left side of the body, the abdomen and torso. If the leg can be straightened and the lower abdomen can connect, then please have the leg straight. That works for your body. Even if you could, you may choose to take this more bent knee position so that more of you can rest. As we move into these classes, as the group of people attending becomes more and more, especially during the summer, committed and regulars, I'll be offering some additional guidance that you can always use in class, even if it's not brought up. And this particular guidance in this pose for the meridians is to bring a kind of imagination to, in this posture, for example, an energy rising up the back or the front, depending upon where you can generate sort of imagines or notice sensation. And then an energy flowing down the back or down the front. So you feel this kind of spreading outwards from kind of midpoint. So our intention and focus today is to begin building an awareness around the first Lojong slogan of point 3, which is usefully titled, "When the world is full of evil, transform all mishaps into the path of wisdom." When the world is full of evil, transform all mishaps into the path of wisdom. This is where Buddhist philosophy sometimes meets harsh reality, which is, well, that's great in theory, but how does that really work in practice? So to begin, we'll explore in the next few classes our awareness of and sense of the idea of interdependence. And we'll begin very simply with a way of being in these postures, or a mental focus for these postures, for the remainder of the practice. And this is, the first part of this practice is to notice where sensation arises in the body. And to do it in the following way. when you notice sensation arising in the body, you will notice it with a kind of thought form that will go something like, there is sensation arising in my hip. That sensation arises from the physical elements of my hip. The physical elements of my hip arise from, and then I want you to fill in that blank. And it does not have to be the hip, of course, it can be wherever sensation arises. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So, the left leg is long, the right leg is bent in. And now, our long lost friend, dragon. Seriously. So now what we'll do is we'll take dragon pose. And what we'll, yes, yippee. And what we'll do is we'll take the right leg forward and the left leg back. Pad up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. You are encouraged, if this is a pose you hate, to do it. If this is a pose you cannot do, to try it. And if it's a pose that you love, then please raise your hand so you can be beaten. So many variations here, right? But let's get the fundamentals down, which is, it's a lunge with the hands somewhere. Most people find the lifted version to be the more painful one. As an FYI, the timer has started. We're already at 36 seconds. But of course, you can take this pose in any way you'd like. Hands on the floor, forearms on the floor, leaning off to the side, slightly twisted, even twisting dragon is fine here. But we're settling into this formidable pose. And so, while you're in this pose, the first side, I'll just distract you with deeper instruction. So the deeper instruction is, again, to notice sensation and to notice its arising in relationship to something in the body. So I'm not going to kind of give away the upshot of this practice, but as sensation arises, calling it and making it aware in your mind by saying there's sensation arising in my insert body part. Then that sensation arises from the physical structures of my body part. And then those physical structures arise from, and so on. So there's a never, or there's a continuous line of awareness. Where is this arising from? And I'd like you to, rather than very quickly running through these, as if to try and end the exercise, but each time awareness arises, to feel that, to notice that, to make it into thought, pause with it for a moment or two, and then go on to the next awareness. Again, there's sensation arising in my, that sensation arises from, and then just keep going. And I'd like you to notice each iteration. Where does that take you? Where do you end up? Where do you become stuck in terms of moving into the next point of the chain? When you find the deepest level that you can go when you're kind of hovering in thought, relax, and then start again with another place from which sensation is arising. In 5 minutes in a posture, you may only get to 1 or 2 places of arising sensation. For those who are concerned about the inherent contradiction of the 3 questions, which seems to beg non-analytical awareness with this very analytical process, all I can say is that I have full faith and trust in your ability to do both simultaneously. Having been with the 3 questions, I trust in your ability to view analytical thought not as a way to concretize the negative portions of your experience, but rather from that vantage point of relaxation in the 3 questions to bring an analytical awareness now to what is going on in these postures. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So please, if you would, come out somehow. Rest. For many, that will be on the abdomen. For some on the back, for some on the side, for some in down dog. However you will rest after dragon pose, please take that. Taking a moment here. And then taking just a relaxed position. Does anyone have any questions about this particular technique before we go on to the other side?
I have questions.
Yes.
So the first pose was bending of the right knee, and the second pose, is it like you straighten the same knee that you bent?
Correct.
And then the third would be the same knee going forward in a shape as that.
So that's dragon. So into dragon. So we have side 1 is we're stretching out. So what we're doing is we're stretching out the quadricep of the back leg in dragon. Then we're opening up the hamstring and relaxing the front leg. And then we shift forward, essentially taking the same back leg that was back in half saddle, and then we move that one into this deep stretch for the back quadricep. So in the second side, we'll change that sequence and do the opposites. Question. Thank you. Other questions? Okay, so let's begin. So coming first into half saddle. So now the left leg will be bent back and the right leg will be long. No, sorry. The right leg will be bent back and the left leg will be long. Oh.
What did you say you needed to figure out left and right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I didn't say that I had figured it out. I just said that we were 4 steps away. That collective we. There's got to be at least one other person in here who doesn't have it down.
It's very reassuring to know that I'm not the only one.
See? We're on the same wavelength. So when you're ready to, that half saddle can take its form of leaning back, or you can stay upright. Again, making that transition together, as many of us we've practiced together for a long time now. So deep in this posture can mean challenging yourself. The timer started, just in case anyone was worried. The challenging oneself in this posture can mean really working on sitting without props and worrying about leaning back later. Another version of challenge can be sitting with props and leaning back. The difference really has to do with how we are focusing the flexibility of the posture. This first flexibility of getting the buttocks to the floor really works on sort of building up the ability of the knee to sustain a very deep flexion, which involves some potential aggravation and strengthening, therefore, of the ligaments and the tendon of the quadriceps that run over the kneecap. Leaning back will both stretch that tendon over the kneecap as well as getting into the belly of the quadricep groove, starting to stretch and lengthen the whole line of the leg up through the thigh crease, the inguinal crease. For some people, because of knee structure, will never really want to comfortably sit with the knee like this, or fully compressed. And therefore, the focus becomes on leaning back, building that openness. For some, this position of the knee can be comfortable, and therefore the work is just on building that ability to sit. This is why, in part, there are no hands-on adjustments in this particular class, nor is there a sense of a right or wrong way to do a posture. The general architecture is achieved, and we let the pose do its work. But please, if you would now, in this pose now, begin to just notice the arising of sensation. Notice the place where sensation occurs. And then try to trace in your own body and in your own awareness from where that sensation arises, until you arrive at a gap point where you can no longer trace any more deeply. And then you find another place of sensation. And again, in 5 minutes, you may only have time to do 1 or 2. You may have time to do 10. All depends. It may arise for you in this process that you will spontaneously identify a source that is curious. You may say, for example, something that seems completely out of left field, or may seem even like a kind of judgment or evaluation. So you're leaning back, or you're in this posture, and you say, there's sensation in my knee. And all of a sudden you say that sensation arises from the fact that, I didn't take care of myself when I was younger. Just notice those things. If none of them arrive, or none of that arises, that's fine too. But it is perfectly all right if those kinds of thoughts arise in the process. Again, just noticing and going backwards, wherever that chain takes you. Seeing nothing as irrelevant. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? I relax around that sensation. Please, if you would, come up. And now swinging that right leg around. Taking or keeping left leg long. And slowly beginning to work yourself down. So the left leg is bent, the right leg is long. So now the back of the right knee is opening. And at the same time, remembering from our first side, we are seeking to compress the body against the thigh. So for some, the leg can be completely long. And there is the ability for the majority of the torso to touch. If that's not the case, then we bend the knee to the degree necessary so that we do have that compression. That compression of the stomach and spleen line. Again, noticing sensation and tracing it backwards. Balancing, as we said, this new, more analytical process with the behaviors and attitudes that we've developed in the very relaxed and non-analytical process created through our initial experience of the 3 questions. Noticing from where sensation arises and why it arises. And more specifically, noticing where sensation arises and why we believe it arises. Why is that sensation arising in your body? And of course, you continue to use the touchstone of the 3 questions. So if a sensation arises, you notice and relax. And if you, in your awareness, come upon a reason for it arising that, again, stimulates a kind of sensation or emotion, then you still notice and relax. This is why you're pausing after each statement before you go deeper. Look at that gap as a way to apply the openness, relaxed awareness of the 3 questions to your analysis and awareness of your body. So the leg that is long, or perhaps, if I have it right this time, the right leg. The leg that is long is the leg that is forward. Is that right? Did we do the left, the back? Good. I'm glad we're all on the same page here. So taking dragon pose. Whatever you're doing, just please do the opposite side. Yeah. Timer is starting. Getting settled in here into this most challenging of poses. So many opportunities to feel in this pose that we may be in fact overwhelmed just to choose one. Please notice that as well. Please notice if the sensations arising are so numerous and or strong that it becomes difficult to actually hone in on one. You may feel like a person walking through a swarm of gnats, just randomly waving your hands. In the same way, just attending to that process, and then perhaps you can settle in on one point to really dig through. Or perhaps not. This experience in dragon pose, perhaps in the other postures as well, is speaking to the nature of the spleen. So as Beinfield and Korn write, when overburdened by excessive input, when overburdened by so much noise, the spleen begins to become incapable of transformation or transport. So too, in our world, we may become overwhelmed by all of the things going on. We may become overwhelmed by the news, by our own circumstance, and we begin to really shut down. As they write, the mind becomes disoriented. And so you may note that in this strong posture, there's really a challenge, first of finding one place to tune into, and second, noticing our tendency when that happens to kind of check out, potentially, that we really struggle to come back to the first question, even before we begin analysis. So feeling what is going on, and choosing a point and digging in. Where is it arising? Why is it arising? First pinpointing where, and then digging in, each time relaxing into the essence of the three questions. Notice the chain of arising. almost there. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? Please come out. As a note to those in the back row, technically speaking, in the yin class, you get out of poses faster because the sound hits you more readily the closer you are to the front of the room. So in the future, you may not all want to cluster back there. Like technically like a millisecond or two longer, you're in postures. So please come on out and relax. If you'd like, even coming down to your back, as our next pose will be from the spine. A little gratitude, please. Who does not have a block? Who needs a block?
Stuart, should our feet be that way or?
Yeah, your feet can face forward. That's fine. Thank you, Phil, for asking. Anyone else need a block? So we're going to take a supported back bend. Very common pose for us. But what I would like you to do in this version is we're going to use a blanket to cover the eyes. If you have an eye pillow or something, you can do that. But just take a blanket and resting it over just the tops of the eyes. Do not smother yourself. You are just going to cover the eyes because the stomach line actually ends in the eyes. So would you like an additional blanket? Didn't do anything, don't worry. So for this back bend, please, this is where we take the block and lifting up the hips in a bridge pose, we place the block underneath the hips. And the block can be on its highest, lowest, or medium setting. And again, for some people, we like to do this posture with the legs straight. We want a little bit more sensation. And please, if you can, take your arms overhead after covering your eyes with the blanket. So you will look like a person in a relaxed bridge pose with a portion of a blanket covering your eyes and your arms overhead. This might be a case where you need a hands-on adjustment. I'll just walk around and make sure no one's going to die. Here, let me just switch that around for you. That way you don't have all that fringe. You don't look like Scheherazade. Hold on. No Scheherazade. No Scheherazade. There we go. There you go. Perfect. So taking this back bend to open and relax the spine. The eye covering really to cool and to stabilize the stomach channel. So please let go of your analysis of feeling and sensation. And instead replace it with a relaxed abiding. That relaxed abiding has the feeling of just allowing things to arise and disappear. Notice something coming up. Relax. Notice its departure. Closing the physical practice with a haiku from Busan. along these southern roads, on shrine or thatched roof, all the same, swallows everywhere. Finding thought arising, finding thought disappearing, finding sensation arising, finding sensation disappearing. Breathing and relaxing in your supported back bend. Eyes relaxed. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? And if you would, please start to come out of your back bend. Pause for a moment on the earth before taking whatever counter pose feels best for you. And then, in your own way, bringing yourself up to seated. And in seated, finding a relaxed and dignified posture. Returning for a few breaths to this contemplation of arising. So with the eyes closed and the senses internalized to a greater degree than usual, as you take the next few breaths, just simply notice one last time there's sensation arising in mind. That sensation arises from awareness of sensation and the source of sensation, following it wherever thought leads you. And then preparing to close with the bow, the hands coming to the hip crease. Again, ending with the aspiration and the 3 chimes bowing on the 3rd. May I experience happiness and the root of happiness. May you experience happiness and the root of happiness. May all beings everywhere experience happiness and the root of happiness. Namaste.
Namaste.
So thank you, everyone, for a wonderful class. So before we ended a bit early, rationale for that is just to be able to allow me to do the next thing with you, which